What is up, everybody? Welcome into playoff edition of Road to the Blue Map. How are you guys doing tonight? We got Coach Beckett back in the house today. Coach Beckett was out with some family issues last week. He's back in the saddle. He's back in the saddle this week.
I'm in it and I'm on it, buddy.
That's it. We want to thank Watkins Heating and Cooling as always, and what they do for not only us and high school sports all throughout Alabama. They do a fantastic job there. You know, Brad Watkins is a good guy. I talked to him on the phone today. He's got a bit of an injury, so he's sitting at home with his foot kicked up, healing, but he can still get out and work now. They still got workers too. So any of your heating and cooling needs in North Alabama, you please reach out to Brad Watkins and Company with Watkins Heating and Cooling. Also, our game-by-game breakdowns are brought to you by Countertop Creation. Tommy Wyman and Company over there in Rainbow City, Alabama do a fantastic job. Any kind of countertop questions or countertop needs you may have, please reach out to them. We will tag them on this post as well. Chandler Tyree, playoff football is here. We're going to break down 1 through 7A again. We're all going to team up on 7A.
Full state tonight, though.
Full state tonight. So we don't have time to hesitate. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and kick this thing off. Chandler, I'm going to give it to you. We're going to do 4 games apiece and then pass the torch.
I'm going to start out with Class 6A, and with that, I'm going to start out with Pike Road and St. Paul's. Pike Road will travel to St. Paul's because St. Paul's was a 3 seed who upset 2 seed Helena last week, 26-0. And so since they traveled in week 1 because Pike Road was at home, St. Paul's will get this as a home game. St. Paul's is one of those teams that just kind of turns it on when they get into the playoffs. When you look at them, they were 9-2 on the year. They were 3-2 at home and 6-0 on the road. So they've been road warriors all week. Their defense is giving up 9.1 points a game. So we talk about when playoffs come around, when this style of football, win or go home, comes around, there's 2 things that always travel: run game and defense. And if you can play good defense, it's going to keep you in the ball game. But they've got a tough test. They got a Patriots team from Pike Road that comes into the ball game at 8-3. They lost their first 2 games of the year, but they lost to 7A Prattville, 7A Enterprise, and the only game they've lost since is to 7A Opelika, which they only got beat 31-20. We know how good Opelika
and on the staff down there.
Yeah, so when you look at Pike Road,
not on the football staff,
they're averaging scoring 34.6 points a game. So something's got to give there. It's a game where one team plays extremely good defense, the other team plays really good offense. The Patriots are 0-2 on the road in the second round, though, and at home in the second round, St. Paul's is 5-4. They've only met 1 time on the field before. Pike Road holds a 1-0 edge in that game that they played before. On the year, like I said, 34.6 points scored a game for Pike Road compared to 24.4 for St. Paul's. But here's where it gets a little. Pike Road is averaging giving up 23.9 defensively, whereas I told you St. Paul's is only giving up 9.1. So numbers can be skewed depending on who you played on your schedule, but a really good matchup right there in the second round to start out our coverage of Class 6A. Like I said, an 8-3 Pike Road team travels to St. Paul's to play a 9-2 St. Paul's team who has losses to Spanish Fort and losses to Saraland. So they've played 2, and their loss to Saraland was only by a score of 19-14. So this St. Paul team, a 3 seed, is a very tricky 3 seed right here, but that's going to be a really good matchup right there.
Quick note, if you guys haven't been to that Mobile area, the St. Paul's and UMS Wright are both on the same road, O'Shell Road, right down from each other. And those 2 schools can have a combined 200 and something state championships. No, wait. 300 and something state championships between them. That's yeah.
They do things
almost,
a little
almost
differently
400,
down there in that Mobile area.
I think UMS has 170 something, and St. Paul's has over 200 state championships.
That's incredible, absolutely incredible. The next matchup is the 1 seed from Region 4, which is the Hueytown Golden Gophers, versus the Spanish Fort Toros, who is the 2 seed from Region 1. In the first round, Hueytown defeated Percy Julian by a score of 28-21, and Spanish Fort beat Benjamin Russell by a score of 49-35. When you look at these 2 teams on the year, Spanish Fort comes into the ball game 9-2. They were 5-1 at home, 4-1 on the road. Their 2 losses on the year come to Saraland, which we all know how good Saraland is, and their other loss came to McGill-Toolen by a score of 20-14. Like I said before, though, they did play St. Paul's, who was the 3 seed, and they defeated St. Paul's 27-13. So we know they've played good opponents, and they come into the matchup at 9-2. They are averaging 31.5 points a ball game, whereas the Golden Gophers offense is averaging 32.5. The Golden Gophers enter at 8-3 on the season after, and then like I said, they beat Percy Julian 28-21 in the first round of the playoffs. So this is bound to be a good matchup. Two teams that are averaging over 30 points a game, matching up in the second round of the Class 6A playoffs in the South, so that we know that. Saraland, I think Saraland, when you look at them next, they match up with McAdory. McAdory was able to win at home last week against a really good Wetumpka team, 24-23. But this is a whole new animal for McAdory. We're talking about a Spanish Fort team that a Saraland team that I feel like is coming off of a year where they felt like they let a state championship slip away. I know that was a really good Clay Chalkville team, but I think almost everybody in the state thought that Saraland was going to go in and win the state championship last December, and they came up short. They are a perfect 10-0 on the year. They are averaging 41.7 points a game, and only giving up 10 points a game is Saraland, whereas McAdory comes in at 7-3 on the year. And McAdory also has a high-powered offense of 36.5. The question with this, can McAdory's defense slow down Saraland enough to give themselves a chance to win the ball game? You're talking about, like I said, a Saraland team that is, let me make sure I pull up the numbers. Number 2 in scoring offense in Class 6A, and they have the number 3 defensive average giving up in Class 6A. So you're talking about a team that can do it all in Saraland. So this is going to be a tough matchup for McAdory. We all know how good Saraland is. On the year, like I said, 417 points scored for Saraland for an average of 41.7, and then an average for McAdory of 36.5. Defense is where it comes in. McAdory's averaging giving up 20 points a game, whereas Saraland is averaging giving up 10 points a ball game. And so we look at this, it's going to be a tough matchup for McAdory. McAdory is very well coached, though. I think that they'll give themselves a chance to win, but can they go on the road at Saraland, at Spartan Stadium, and play well enough to win the ball game? And then my last matchup in Class 6A in the South is Spain Park. We're talking about an undefeated Spain Park team, and they will play Russell County at home. Now, things got a little shaky for Spain Park last week. At one point, they were down 35-24 late in the third quarter and came back and scored 20 points unanswered to win the football game by a score of 44-35 to improve, like I said, to 11-0 on the year. It's crazy to believe, crazy to think that with Spain Park, they played for a state championship. First time in school history that they've been undefeated this far in the season. They're averaging 37.5 points a game and just rolling offensively. But when you look at them defensively, they're giving up 16.3 points a game, whereas Russell County, 9-2. Timeout. Did anybody ever think in their right mind that Russell County would be playing in the second round of the 6A playoffs 5 years ago?
No, they were horrible.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
They hired the OC from Pinson, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And
he came in, has done and I honestly didn't think he would stay there as long as he's been there. But they're averaging 40 points a game. All right, 40 points a ball game. They're averaging giving up 24. But when you score at that rate, at that clip, you're going to give up points. Here's the thing: how well will they match up? And this is a team that beat Northridge last week, 42-25. And a lot of people across the state were saying Northridge was going to roll into Russell County and beat Russell County last week. So, like I said, 9-2 on the year. They finished second in Region 2. And I look for them to make some noise and to really push an undefeated Spain Park team. That would be, this is going to be a game to go to if you're in the Birmingham area.
Look at the job Bacakis has done at Spain Park as well.
Bacakis has been unbelievable.
Since he's come over from Jackson Olin.
And when he came to Spain Park was in a bad place.
They were in a bad
They were
place.
awful. So when you
First
look
thing
at,
he did was maintain what he had there and stop the bleeding.
and a lot of things.
Well, now, he did lose a 4-star Thompson on the transfer last year as well, the defensive end.
And I think a lot of things he's done is I think he's brought some swag to the program. But here's the thing about it, Spain Park, you can doubt them, but when they've made it to the second round, they've won. They're 3-0 all time in the second round. Russell County is 0-2 on the road all time in the second round. So this is going to be the first meeting between these two teams, and I think it's going to be a classic in Hoover on Friday night.
I'm going to start with 1A football, and I'm going to do 1A North. We're going to get some of these North flavor teams going right here. He started with the South. I'm going North. Beckett, we don't know where you're going yet.
You don't know.
You never know.
No,
with
no
Beckett.
look pass.
No look pass. You better keep your hands up, though. All right, let's start out with a pretty local team here. We're going to talk about Wadley. They're going to be taking on Meek. Wadley's pretty much been on a mission all year. I don't think there's any question about that. Meek is the number 2 seed in Region 7. Wadley the number 1 seed in Region 6. Wadley has pretty much dominated all season long. Last week they took on a very stingy, tough Valley Head team, and it wasn't even close. It ended up being 68-14. Look, Wadley's averaging 52.8 points per game. That's incredible. But they're only giving up 12.9. So that lets me know even when their JV kids get in there, they're performing as well because they're only allowing 12.9 as a team on the year. You know, Meek is going to test them. They average 34 points a game. But if you Google the definition of Meek, which I did do, it stands for quiet, gentle, easily imposed on, and submissive. Well, they better be 1,000% opposite of all that when they take on this Wadley team, because I'm telling you right now that this Wadley team, to me, looks like they are on an absolute mission and not putting a cart in front of the horse. I better not say that. It might be bulletin board material, so I'll just hold on to that. There's another team out there that I think in the North is looking to face them, wanting to face them, but I don't want to put no bulletin board material out. So I'm going to hold that thought. Wadley holds a 2-0 all-time record versus Meek, and I'm looking for a pretty good football game in this one, but I'm telling you, Meek better show up, be ready to play for this one, because they only put up 14 points last week versus Hubbardville. They're going to have to score a lot more than 14 points to beat this Wadley team because, as I said, they're on a mission. All right. Next game. That game will get the winner of this game. This game is Spring Garden is going to be hosting Berry. Now, this is a really interesting game, really interesting game. I did some breakdowns of last week's game for Spring Garden and then season stats with Berry here. So check this out. Spring Garden on the season is undefeated still. They're rolling 11-0. They're only giving up 10.9 points per game. That's the first thing that jumps off the page for me, which also lets me know, again, that their JV guys, when they get in, they're performing as well. Here's why that's very important. There's a young man that plays for Berry named Aiden Norris. He's number 0. I'm going to run through these stats. We talked about him last week. This week, if you're in Spring Garden and you're watching the show, this is the young man that you got to watch out for. He's number 0. On the year, he's 94 for 144 passing attempts. He's completed 94 of 144. For 1,537 yards, 20 touchdowns. But Beckett, this is the thing, as a coach, you're going to like most of all. He's only threw 3 picks.
Wow.
He's only threw 3 picks out of 144 passes. Pretty solid, right?
We talked about him last week, didn't we?
We did.
He makes plays, scores touchdowns, first down machine, and takes care of the football.
And here is where it gets crazy and dicey. He's rushed the ball 159 times for 1,962 yards. He's averaging 12.3 yards per carry. He scored 37 touchdowns on the year. He's also caught 10 passes for 164 yards and a touchdown. So that gives him combined stats of 3,666 yards and 58 touchdowns. So that's what it's no mystery who, if you're going to stop Berry, who you got to stop. He's number 0. His name's Aiden Norris. Well, this group of Spring Garden Panthers is definitely up to that challenge. As we said earlier, they're only giving up 10.9 points per game. They've been playing phenomenal football all season. When Spring Garden is their most dangerous is when what we seen last week versus Victory Christian in a 54-21 win. And what I mean by that is they had 675 total yards last week. Noah Barber was 8 for 10 for 100 10 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He threw one to Eli Ledbetter, one to Welch, and one for Connor Bates. Connor Bates on the ground had 211 yards on 13 carries. So I'm just telling you, if Spring Garden's scoring and playing offense like that, and their defense is going to show up every single night, they are going to be a very, very tough out, and they would get the winner of Meek.
It's only a 4-point spread.
It is only a 4-point spread, and I think that plays into Spring Garden's favor, because I think that's going to be posted all over their locker room that, hey, the experts don't think we can only win by 4. I mean, I know if you talk to Coach Ragsdale right now and you say, Coach, would you take a 1-point win right now? Guarantee.
It's the playoffs.
He'd take a 1-point win.
Sure.
But there is a amount of respect for the hard work and what they've done this year, in my opinion.
They've been dominant.
They have been dominant. All right, my next game is going to be Appalachian, who's going to be taking on Lynn. This game's going to be at Lynn. We're all familiar with Lynn. Last year, you know, they were rolling, was ranked number 1 in the state for a majority of the time, ended up losing to Coosa Christian at Coosa Christian last year. It's the first time these two teams have met on the field. Last week, Appalachian took care of a very stingy, tough Donahoe team, 34-10. Lynn took on Cherokee, beat them 35-0. So they had a shutout last week. You know, Lynn is a very good-looking team. Like, I seen them play live last year. They have some really good-looking athletes. They're going to be a tough out right here in this one. But Appalachian, I think, is up for the challenge. I mean, when you look at Appalachian and seeing what they've done this season, they've been scoring 33 points per game. They're only allowing 18.2. They're 9-2 overall and 5-1 in this very, very tough region that they played in. So, you got a region with Valley Head, you got Raglan in there, you got Spring Garden in there, you got Galesville, who's played really good all year. So this is a very, very tough game, but I think Appalachian, in my opinion, is battle tested, and I think they're ready for this because, they, as Chandler mentioned earlier, they run the football really well, and they also play defense really well. So I think they're up for this challenge. They won't be wide-eyed, so to speak, in this role or against this Lynn football team. My next game to break down is Winterboro. Winterboro is taking on Hackleburg. This is another really interesting game.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about this game in there. Last week, Winterboro beat Raglan 38-12. Pretty impressive win considering the Raglan was peaking at the right time.
The way Raglan was playing.
Yes. Hackleburg took on a perennial power, Pickens County, ended up hammering them 41-6. So they seem to be peaking at the right time. On the season, Hackleburg is 10-1. They're averaging 40.5 points per game. Here's the X factor in the game, in my opinion. They're only allowing 8.3 points per game. That's very impressive, in my opinion, especially in 1A football. If you're only allowing 8 points a game in 1A football, in my opinion, that's very impressive because the depth ain't there. And when some of these younger kids go in, even though it may be blowouts, they still got to maintain, gap assignment. They still got to get people on the ground. Very, very impressive to only average that. You flip that thing over and look at Winterboro. They're 8-2 on the season. They're averaging 32 points per game. They're allowing 17.1 points per game defensively. Winterboro all time holds a 1-0 edge in this matchup. Look for Jamari Nix. Last weekend he had 105 yards rushing on just 6 carries. Javier McKenzie had 91 yards rushing on 14 carries for Winterboro. So those two guys need to step up and play good again. They ended up with 382 yards last week versus Raglan. So this one should be a very interesting game as well. Mr. Beckett, I'm kicking it on over to you.
All right. Hey, 2A. Let's talk a little bit about 2A, and let's go 2A North at that. Hey, preseason, coming into the season, the experts, they were talking about Reeltown. Almost won it last year. Had a really, really strong team. Tuscaloosa Academy, we're talking Preston Lancaster, almost threw for 4,000 yards. And very impressive guy. Pisgah, Luke Gilbert, Legion McCrary. Top notch. People had to think that they had a chance to come out of the North. Cottonwood, Clark County returning 14 starters, and then Coosa. Those were the people they had. They